while I was in this, I would say, fork in the road with my career, one day I got a call from my mother, who was still living in Carson at the time, and she had just got back from the doctor, and she found out that she had a lump in her breast. And for me that was devastating, because my mother was one of my very best friends, and we would go shopping together, out to lunch on Saturdays. She was always there for me. She helped me take care of my daughter. We were either at her house or my house, and it was just, really the perfect situation. And having your mother as a best friend is very amazing. And to find out, just to get the call with her saying she had a lump on her breast, I didn't really know how to handle that. So I kind of started doing a little bit of research, because I wanted to know more than what the doctors were saying.
My mother had 2 bouts with cancer. The first one I remember because my second child was born. My first child was David, the second one was London, and my third was Joshua. During my mother's first bout with cancer, I remember her saying, before the birth of my second child, London, "I hope I live long enough to see London born." Well, she not only saw London born, but she saw Cameron born, Carolyn's daughter. And she saw Joshua born, my third son. She saw Michelle born, Michael's daughter. She saw Ian born, Kenny's son.
Ultimately, we did find out that she had breast cancer. We immediately went into treatment. So she had chemo and radiation back to back for 6 months of chemo, 6 months of radiation. And during that time, we were still focused on finding our own space and understanding more about breast cancer.
10 years went by and she developed cancer again. And so she began the chemo, and chemo's not an easy thing, but she dealt with it pretty well. And then the radiation. And there were several radiation treatments, something like 10 or 15, somewhere in there. And I remember that on the last radiation treatment, the family was preparing to have a big party. But she developed a pain in her back, and that's when we discovered that the cancer had metastasized.
My name is Angela Alcorn. There was no history of cancer in my family until I started the whole thing.
My name is Yvonne Carter, and I am a survivor for 8 years for breast cancer. My name is Delina Johnson, and how old I am? 86. 86. Mm-hmm. And I had cancer. The only way I remember,
About 40 years now.
Yeah, Ghana is what, 40. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, it's been 40 or 45 years I had breast cancer.
My name is Elizabeth Perry, and I found out that from my doctor that I had cancer 2 years ago.
After I closed my jazz club, Cabrini's Jazz Alley, I moved to downtown Los Angeles and opened up pet stores. But in 2005, I was actually at my home, and my dog, which is God spelled backwards, jumped on my lap. And when she jumped on my lap, I actually brushed my breast, and I felt a knot. I was like, what is that? And being an entrepreneur, most times we don't think of ourselves, and having insurance, we want to make sure that everything else is taken care of. So consequently, I did not have insurance. But that did not stop me.
It was in March of 1997, when my younger daughter was pregnant with her first child, that I began having spasms in my right arm. But I did nothing about it. My daughter said, "Go to the doctor, Mama."
I did know it, that I had breast cancer. But with the pain, you know, you doing it started hurting, and at that time, they weren't really working with it as much as they are now. They've come a long ways, because when I started out with it, they wasn't sure, and they this and that and the other.
I went every year to have the mammogram, and then they finally found something. And then right away, when the doctor told me that I had it, I says, okay, that's when you want to operate.
When I went to my doctor, he looked over my history and found out that I hadn't had a mammogram in 3 years. So he said, go right now. Well, you know, just a routine thing.
I discovered it myself. I went to the doctor and he searched. He said I always have a tumor, so it was. So I said, well, what about this tumor in the front? And he said, oh, I'm sorry. So immediately I had changed doctors, got a second opinion, and it was malignant. And I was able to save my breast because I discovered it myself.
You see, I continued to make sure that somebody was going to take care of this, and somehow, you know, this would be handled.
It was a challenge because the doctors give you some information and then you have to go and get your own information. My mother was treated at the City of Hope. She was in the hospital on and off for over 6 months, and that is where our family really came together, in her room at the City of Hope.
And I remember flying out those last several months, maybe twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month, and being with Carolyn, Michael, and Kenny, my dad, going back and forth to the hospital and so forth. We would all take our sort of turns or, on-call duties, if you will.
We would come together with our research, print it out from our home computers. We would review it with my mother, and we would make decisions. We would bounce that information off of the doctors and then seek information from doctors outside of the City of Hope.
And he says, I can do 1 or 2 things. He says, I'm going to give you radiation. But he said, I don't think I want to do it right now. He said, but I tell you what. He said, I can take the baby or something like, the breast. And I didn't want that. I didn't want to go around like that.
They decided they wanted to do a biopsy. They actually did 2 biopsies. One, a needle biopsy where they actually pull fluid out of the lump to do some more detailed testing. That situation took a little bit of time, took a little bit of patience in getting the results back. And I think I really learned my own spirit and my own patience through this.
He told me that I would have to have surgery. And the first thing I wanted to know was, would I have to have therapy and all that, the chemo and all that? Mm-hmm. And he said no. Then the next thing I wanted to know if I would have to wear that stocking on my arm, elastic arm, and he said no. So then I said, okay, when you want to operate? And he said, don't you want to talk to somebody? I said, no, because the sooner I have it, the sooner I'll get back to my normal self, and I can go on with my life. And that's what happened.
I had nodules on both sides. I went through the biopsy and discovered that I had cancer on both sides. So I was sent to the surgeon, who said, do you mind having both breasts removed? And I told him no, since I wasn't going to be running for Miss America, and I needed to lose weight, and that would be 10 pounds in one fell swoop.
There was a person from the county hospital, and he came over, and he put me on the table, and there was a lot of junk stuff they put, and then they didn't have the stuff that they could now just get you on the table and you're gone. But they said I had breast cancer, and I was pregnant with my daughter.
And then when I got ready to go into surgery, I talked to the Lord, and I told him, I said, I know you are in control of everything, but when you tell those doctors what to do, be sure that they do it. And they did.
There was really a time when my mother was really in a lot of pain. There was the medication, the chemo, the radiation, and it really just instills a lot of pain into your body. And her breast cancer moved to her tailbone and ultimately to her brain. And just seeing her go through that was one of the most painful, devastating experiences that I have ever gone through.
Before she passed away, we ultimately she enrolled in hospice at the home where we all grew up. And all of us were around when she came from the hospital home, and eventually she passed away. But the idea of privacy did not pass away.
Just talking to other breast cancer patients, breast cancer survivors, I mean, there's an agreement there that it's a very painful experience. And to watch my mother die was just unbelievable.
So on June 4th, 1997, I had the bilateral mastectomy. It really got to my husband. My daughter said that he cried when they rolled me in from the operating room with all the tubes and whatnot. However, it saved my life.
I tell anyone with cancer, it is nothing to play with. It's, your body changes and you get sick, you know, and today you wake up, you're fine, not fine. Tomorrow, you're sick as you can be. So, one doctor told me, no, don't take radiation. But the other one said yes. So I just prayed over it, and I woke up one morning and I just got on up and went on where I was going. And I told him I would take it.
My chemotherapy wasn't too bad, and I had radiation, and all my hair fell out. Thank God it came back better than it was before.
Although it did burn, they weren't used to this. And they told me we are not used to, we're used to cutting, but not radiation and stuff. So I took radiation. I'm burned from here to yonder, but I have to go every 6 months. It's so far so good. They say they don't see anything, but it does take a toll. So I'm not trying to say, oh, it's nothing to it. It is. It is nothing to play with. And I'm tired at times, I'm hurt at times, and I'm weak. And it will take you, I don't know. But I just get on up and keep going. And this is my prayer hand.
He's still here.
My daughter, she's not my daughter by birth, but somehow or another, the good God brought her in my life, and we prayed together, and she discussed, and then when I get off, you know, then she gets on me.
So I was able to find insurance and help, and in a 3-month period I was able to have a lumpectomy, I was able to have lymph node surgery, and I was also able to have radiation therapy, which was actually went right back into the site. So I only had radiation one time. Now what's interesting about that is I was actually able to have these procedures done very quickly because I actually caught it quick enough. So the main and the most important thing, I think, with breast cancer is really catching it early and not being afraid because you don't have insurance and because you may not have the things that you need to take care of it, or that you may be afraid that you might die. Well, for, let me see, I'm 42 now, so maybe I would say for 39 years of my life, I feared dying. I thought of dying every day. I was afraid that I would die because when I was young, I did stupid things doing drugs that actually almost caused me to die. So I took that with me for 30 years of my life. So when something actually happened that could kill me, I realized that living was more important.
I remember sort of like being my mother's son, but at the same time being her pastor. So it was more than a son, it was sort of like a spiritual encounter with her.
No therapy.
No chemo.
I guess tamoxifen, whatever.
How does that work?
It's fine.
No, how does that work? How do they do that?
Fine. Oh, you mean it's a
procedure.
pill.
Oh.
You take it every day, and you have to take it for 5 years. And if you take it for 5 years and you have no problem, I guess that's it.
I then had to go through 8 months of chemotherapy, which is not a pretty thing to do. However, because of my family and my dear friends who organized a nurse patrol for me, I had one in the morning from 8 to 12 and one from 12 to 4 when my husband was able to come home and get to take care of me. I had friends who cooked dinner for the whole family. And I had God.
Because I had no idea that, because I have a milk clot or something in this side. And that's what I was expecting it to be. But it was my left side. So it was good for me. I recommend it to anybody to go and be tested. And if the doctor says sooner have it right away, okay, because if you ask somebody else's opinion, wait around, then it's getting worse. But if you make your decision right then and there, it's better.
The specialist found I had cancer. And so I just, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I cannot explain it because I don't know how I felt. Because my sister died with cancer, but she died because she smoked. I did not smoke, and I didn't drink, and I still don't. And I still wonder why me, come down with it, because I have always tried to take care of myself.
During I guess it was the 4th month of chemotherapy, I was really a little depressed. I was tired of the whole routine, And I was sitting in my room, and I was, feeling sorry, my own personal pity party. And I heard a voice that said, "It'll be all right." I don't know who the voice. It had to be from God. But it gave me the lift that I needed.
Well, my recovery was pretty good because when I went back to work, everybody was surprised to see me coming back so quick with nothing, with no having, just coming back, going right on to work and didn't have to go see no doctor or anything like that. Because then they would tell me about their friends or relatives that had had the same thing and they had a lot of problems. But I was blessed. I didn't have any.
I was brought up in the church, and I was brought up to believe in prayer. And I went to bed that night, and I prayed over it. And I said, it was His will, not mine, that I bring forth this child or take it away. So, how old is she now? She's 49. So when she was born, the doctor says they didn't see no cancer nowhere. But I still had to take treatment. And I still go every now and then, and they said they don't see it. So I tell you, when you believe in prayer, which I was brought up in the church, and I still pray. But so far so good.
And I went back to work in the, regular time that you're off. And then I've been working ever since. No problem.
I also am grateful to the breast cancer, I guess that's what you call it, breast cancer organization. Why me? It's a group of people, women, started by a young woman who had cancer. And we would meet once a month to talk about things that we had gone through. And you gain strength from hearing other people.
That's when I found out I was pregnant. And that is when I didn't care one way or the other. I said, Lord, why this? But then an old lady down the street came to me. She said, maybe you were put here for a reason. And maybe you had to have that cancer for a reason. So I accepted it.
When I went to the doctor the first of this year, he told me I didn't have to come back until 208.
You get tired of fighting, I think. And I don't consider fighting, I don't know what it is. But a lot of people say, oh, there's a bit no age gone. Yeah, I'm old. But it's a lot out there to learn and enjoy. My family raised so far so good. Now I'm on some grandkids.
Yes.
But I enjoy them. I think.
You say you think. You think you enjoy the grandchildren, huh?
Oh my, yeah.
Whenever the doctor tells you that you have it, then you go for tests. And then when the tests come through, agreeing with what he said, then you, you take the test first, and then you go to the surgeon. And then that's when he tells you what it is. And then that's when you tell him to go ahead on and operate right away. Because the quicker he operates, the quicker you'll get better and can go back to working or whatever you're doing.
In the hospital where I go, they ask, and I tell them. I said, I had radiation, and it did mess my body up, but I don't tell them not to take it. So I just go one day at a time, and I do say this. I was brought up in the church, and I was brought up praying, because I knew what I was doing. I did not know enough. You had to pray, and that's what I did, and that's what I'm doing. I do everything, even walking. And this child here, she's not but cousin of children, but she is my daughter, and she helped me. Sometimes I said, Lord, you just go ahead on, But I prayed to let God let me live to take care of my children. So far, so good.
And what I found in that experience, that women in general, although we thrive for information and more data, I really learned that information is not readily available. So with my family being a fairly educated family, we were in a position to really do our own research, understand more about breast cancer, understand more about treatments, not just chemo and radiation, but we studied alternative medicine as well. We weren't able to take advantage of the alternative medication because certain timing issues came into play. But we had to go out of our way to get this information. And so I started thinking, what about the families that just don't have access to medical research libraries or the internet or just computers in general, they are relying on their doctors. And what happens is the doctors will give you just a little bit of information here, a little bit of information there, and these kind of situations you have to really, really be on top of it. So, we learned a lot, and we felt that if it was not for our family union, that we would probably be in a little bit of a bind, just going to chemo and radiation only. So I started going back to what I was saying. I started thinking about other families out there that just don't have access to the information, and in my mind I wanted to change that. I wanted to really be an advocate for change as it relates to breast cancer.
I would recommend you to get the mammograms and do what the doctor says. He says take so much off and whatever he says, because they know, because they give you all kinds of tests before you have the surgery, and so they know what's going on.
I tell anybody with cancer, it's nothing to laugh about it. It's nothing to joke about it or play around with it. If you have it, first of all, you have to accept it. Second, you have to get the best doctor in the world, and that's Jesus Christ. To me, I feel that's the difference. And that's what I did.
Yes.
I talk to the people and they say, but what about surgery?
I do everything. I wash and I iron, I cook and I clean the house and I work and I shop, and I do and I take out the garbage, and they say you don't lift with your left arm. Well, I'm very careful. I don't really lift, I just use it as a support. But I did like the doctor said and what people told me, But I live a normal life.
So I was able to have the radiation therapy, which was actually a one-day process as opposed to 45 days. And then I went to chemo. And so I actually had to have chemotherapy, 5 rounds of it. And what's important, again, is to not listen. In the first diagnosis of a year, it's very important the information that goes into your head. Who speaks to you, who talks to you, and what information is fed to you. So what I did was I made sure that only thing I thought about was good. When I talked about chemotherapy, I knew what chemotherapy was, but I didn't think about what chemotherapy was. What I did was I said, okay, I'm going to go and have liquid cleansing. I'm going to go and they have a wonderful chair and you recline and you watch TV. And so I had liquid cleansing every day. And you get sick, you get nauseous, but you take your meds and you're fine. I worked throughout my entire time and throughout my entire chemo process. And so I can honestly say to you that it was that's not the way I really want to lose weight. So I got down to my perfect weight. But, that's not the way you want to do it. But I was able to really understand what life is.
There's this whole concept of finding a cure, but before we can find a cure, we have to do the proper research, and we have to get out to the communities and understand where there is a need. There is generally a need in the minority communities, but to be honest with you, there's a need across the country. So I wanted to be an advocate for change in terms of distributing information to breast cancer patients and their families. The breast cancer patient needs to really understand the treatment options and the side effects of all the medication that you have to take when you're going through radiation and the medication that you take when you go through chemo.
I'm sure right now my mother is looking down from heaven very proud, because Privacy Wear is a company that is life inspired, and it inspires people to be aware of cancer, and to encourages people to go and to seek assessment from their doctor so that they can have intervention early in the process, and so that they can have the victory over cancer. It is a company that raises funds for cancer research, so it is a company that looks beyond its own fulfillment and tries to bless other folk.
I am grateful to God for bringing me through this. It made me humble. It made me appreciate life. It made me appreciate the very fact that there are little things that mean a lot. My friends and my family and my God brought me through. The other good thing about the chemotherapy was that it took care of my arthritis while I was taking chemotherapy. But I will tell you, I don't want it anymore.
When you check, when you do self-exams, and when you get your breast checked, you don't have to have the mastectomy. You can actually, because I actually still have my breast. So that's why it's really important to really just stay on top of it, to have your breast checked, to do your self-exams or have your husband do it, and live longer.
I guess it was because of my faith and the fact that I had a good doctor, and I did what the doctor said do.
Still working for Hewlett Packard, but I saw that my entrepreneurial spirit was really flowing at this time, and I really wanted to do something that I was passionate about. While my mother was in the hospital, actually in the hospital at the City of Hope, we were talking about passion, and we were talking about things that give us that extra energy to go the extra mile. And if you're not passionate about something, then it makes it harder to achieve certain goals. So I decided at that point that even though I really was in a good position with my career, I wasn't passionate about just writing systems or managing teams that build systems. I really wanted to do something that really put me in the forefront of this whole cancer research, and that is something that I enjoy doing, but today I enjoy doing it, but back then I never knew how I could really put it together.
Throughout that time, actually, when I was on chemotherapy, I actually happened to go to a jazz concert, and Carolyn happened to be there with a friend of mine. And because my head was bald, she, I guess, knew about cancer and chemotherapy because her mother had fought breast cancer for many years. So for the 2 years that she went through that, she understood what that process was, and so she and I talked, and throughout that process, I found out that she did clothing called Privacy Wear.
In the hospital, my mother reminded me that I was always very passionate about apparel. As I mentioned earlier, big time shoppers. We have been I shopped with my mother early on since I was able to walk, and so she said, "You've always been interested in clothes, why don't you design a clothing line?" And she says, if you're really passionate about breast cancer, take the proceeds from the clothing line and give back to breast cancer programs. And I thought that was a really good idea. But I thought about it. A few days later, when I was back at the hospital, we were trying to think of a name. We were thinking of a name for this idea, a clothing company that would give back to breast cancer. And there's a funny thing happened. My mother was getting out of the hospital bed, and she had the gown on, and the opening in the back was very revealing, and she said, I would just like to have something that's going to give me more privacy, because you get up and the gown is open in the back and everything is exposed. And so when she said privacy, it just stuck in my head, and I said, you know what? I think that name would be a good name for the clothing company. And we just laughed. And there was, a few other people in the room. One of my brothers was there. And so we were thinking privacy. And so then privacy wear. That's how the name originated, and we just stuck with it.
And privacy wear has just blossomed and appears to continually be blossoming. And so I'm very proud of her. And I'm very happy that she is doing something where she is being a blessing beyond herself to other people and trying to make a dent, and ultimately perhaps our society will enjoy a victory over cancer.
I just thank the Privacy Act for giving me this chance to speak. I've gotten several apparel of theirs, and I enjoy all of it, and I hope this apparel, this shop continues, because it is worthy.
Privacy wear is a wonderful, God-given thing to have for women who suffer through this breast cancer. The one thing in the hospital was, and then when I came home primarily, was trying to find something that was comfortable to wear. And having been the lucky recipient of some of the things that have come from privacy wear, I can say it is a godsend.
Privacy part came from, how you have those gowns that you don't like. So Carolyn came up with privacy wear with the name, and because the back of the gown is all open, and so here we are with this amazing clothing line. And when I first put on the t-shirt, I can't say that I've ever felt such a comfortable t-shirt in my life. And I'm not saying this because I know her or that I've just met her. It's actually true. And so much so that at my store, now I own my own pet store, right? And every day, me and my business partner, we're wearing privacy wear t-shirts. So people consequently think that's our uniform. And it's because it's comfortable, because it looks and feels good. Hence, life-inspired clothing. There's nothing like putting on clothes that feel good, that look good, and that have a purpose. So, mission, purpose, cure. I think within all of it, she has captured it.
Privacy Wear is a company that works toward the freedom and respect of those that might have cancer, and tries to prevent and work toward the freedom and respect of those that don't have it yet by preventing it, by raising funds for cancer research, but also getting early screening. And I think those are important pieces. And that's why I love the company. That's why I'm so proud of not only my sister, but all the people involved with her that work so hard every day to do something that will ultimately cancel out cancer.
Thank you to Carolyn. Thank you to the very fact that she thinks enough of her brother, the Reverend Richard James, my pastor, to send so many items that have brought comfort not only to those of us who are cancer survivors, but to our children, our friends, and they can go and tell others how important it is for cancer research to continue. Privacy wear is one means of bringing it not only to the forefront for people, but through the profits of the organization. It's not their profits. The profits are going to cancer research for free mammograms. Thank you, God, for privacy wear, for Carolyn, and for all those who are working with her to help make this reality. to make the cure for breast cancer a reality. We need it, and through God, we're going to do it. Thank you, PrivacyWare.
I'm honored to actually be able to speak about the mission, the purpose, and the cure behind breast cancer, and being a part of what Carolyn Jones is doing when it comes to saving lives and giving people life through clothes.
I'm very proud of her, and I'm just absolutely impressed beyond imagination. You know, I'm just very, very impressed. And I just have a good feeling about what she's doing in the world. She's a successful woman that is not selfish. She's trying to do something that's meaningful, productive, not only for herself or her company, but beyond her company.